meeting. I just want to acknowledge my transition into the role as a chair for this committee. I know that it's an automatic transition from a vice chair to the chair, but I appreciate the nomination that was given to me last meeting. And I know a member Greenblatt is not here, but I wanted to congratulate her for her transition as a vice chair. And I wanted to thank Chris Weeks for setting a good example for me as a chair. And I feel like if I do half a good job as he did, I think I should be okay.
I think you're okay already. Thank you.
Thanks
for taking over.
Thank you. And with that, I'm hoping to get the support of all the committee members as we discuss the items in the agenda and move forward. Hoping for a successful new year. So with that, please give your attention to this short video.
This meeting will be conducted as a Zoom webinar to allow for public participation and comments. The Contra Costa Transportation Authority does not condone hate speech in any form. We continually strive to make life better for all members of our community and create an atmosphere where everyone feels a sense of safety and belonging. We ask that anyone who wishes to speak does so with civility, respect, and kindness for others. Public speakers will have up to 3 minutes to speak. The chair will call upon public speakers at the appropriate time. Each public speaker is requested to state their name and organization, but providing such information is voluntary. Public speakers who wish to speak in person should submit a public speaker card to the clerk. Public speakers participating by Zoom who are wishing to speak should use the raise hand feature or dial *9 if participating via phone. Written public comments received in accordance with the teleconferencing special notice on the meeting agenda will be provided to the members. If authors of any written correspondence would like to speak during the meeting, they should raise their hand or submit a public speaker card. Thank you for participating in a meeting of the Contra Costa Transportation Authority.
Erica, please conduct a roll call.
Member Amijo. Member Conradi.
Here.
Member Diaz.
Here.
Member Elias. Member Golier.
Here.
Member Alt Hernandez for Member Doe.
Here.
Member Laval. Member Levine. Member Alt McTV. Did I say that right? Okay. Member Nelson. Member Ortiz. Member Panganiban.
Present here.
Member Redmond.
Here.
Member Rahani. Member Alt Dixick. Is it Dixick?
Yeah. Yes, here.
Member Stamps.
Here.
Member Weeks.
Here.
Member Wirtz.
Here.
Member Alt Valeros.
Here.
Vice Chair Greenblatt. And Chair Pillai.
Here.
And we have Member Ortiz. Did I miss anybody?
All right. Looks like we have 2 new alternate members here, Srinivas Muktevi and Jeff Valeros. Do you want to introduce yourself, your agency, and your role?
Yeah, this is Srinivas Muktevi. I'm with City of Martinez. as a assistant city engineer / assistant public works director. I'm with that city for the last 6 months. Before that, I was in Berkeley, city of Berkeley. And before that, with Alan in Vallejo. That's all.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jeff Valeros. I am the Senior Civil Engineer at Contra Costa County Public Works Department in our Transportation Engineering Division. I've been with the county for a little over 10 years now, 8 years within our Transportation Engineering Division. Happy to be here.
Thank you for that introduction. Welcome. All right, let's go to the first item on the agenda is now the public comment. Erica, did we receive any public comments?
We have not received any online public comments.
Okay. So basically, if there is anyone wishing to speak during the public comment on any item that is not part of the agenda, if so, please submit a public speaker card or raise your virtual hand and a staff or I will call upon you. Erica, do we have any in-person or remote public comments?
We do not have any remote or in-person public comments.
All right. That concludes our public comment item. The next item on the agenda is the consent calendar. Are there any changes or comments from the committee? Does anyone want to pull any item? Hearing none. If anyone from the public would like to speak, please submit a public speaker card or raise your virtual hand and a staff or I will call upon you. Erica, have you received any written or in-person or remote public comments?
We do not have any remote or in-person online public comments at this time.
Thank you. So now do I have a motion?
I will move to pass the minutes as stated.
Thank you. And a second?
I'll second the consent calendar.
Thank you. So I have a first by Member Armijo and a second by Member Weeks. So Erica, please conduct a roll call.
Member Armijo,
Yes.
Member Conradi,
Yes.
Member Diaz,
Yes.
Member Golier,
Yes.
Member Alt Hernandez,
Yes.
Member Levine,
Yes.
Member Alt McTeevy,
Yes.
Member Dixon, or Member Alt Dixon,
Yes.
Member Ortiz,
Yes.
Member Redmond,
Yes.
Member Panganiban,
Yes.
Member Stamps,
Yes.
Member Weeks,
Yes.
Member Wertz,
Yes.
Member Alt Valeros,
Yes.
and Chair Pillai.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Erica. So now we are going on to the regular agenda items. We have 3 regular agenda items. The first item is informational and will be presented by Amara Morrison with Fenmore LLP, General Counsel to the Authority, to present a refresher on the Brown Act.
Oh, that's okay. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. As Erica mentioned, I'm General Counsel to the CCTA, and I've been asked to give a short presentation on the Brown Act to the TCC this afternoon. And I'm sure that many of you have already plenty of experience with the Brown Act, given your respective home agencies, but I'll just give a quick little refresher. We've had some changes during COVID and then post-COVID. hybrid meetings, and I realize that this is being televised. It's not necessarily a hybrid meeting where folks are calling in to participate, but we just thought it would be a helpful time or a helpful reminder to give an overview on the Brown Act. So we'll just cover very quickly the Brown Act fundamentals, talk about what constitutes a legislative body, this body does, what are meetings, closed sessions, which are really not going to be applicable to this body, notice and agenda requirements, and then public participation requirements. And I'll talk a little bit about Robert's Rules of Orders, and then I really would like to leave a few moments for question and answer, because I think a lot of times that's when we can learn most effectively by real life examples. So let's see, just very, very briefly, the Brown Act is kind of commonly referred to as California's Sunshine Law, and it finds its authority in the government code. And essentially, legislative bodies are considered to be any governing body. For example, your home city councils or Board of Supervisors, County Board of Supervisors. And a legislative body really applies or is considered any board, committee, such as yourselves, or any other body of that local agency, whether it's permanent or temporary, and whether it is decision-making, like the CCTA Authority Board, or whether it is advisory in nature, like the TCC is. And those legislative bodies can be created by charter, by ordinance, or in our case, through CCTA's administrative code. So let's see here. So when does the Brown Act apply? It applies when there is a gathering or a congregation of a majority of the members of the board or any committee. And CCTA has 11 voting authority board members. It has standing board committees, each comprised of 5 members. And then advisory committees such as the TCC range from 11 to 24. I think this body has 24 members. And meetings can include the use of technology, by phone, by video, and anytime that there is, again, a gathering or a majority of the board or committee members who are gathering to discuss or deliberate on an issue. I'll talk about the serial meetings in a moment. Let's see here. So one area that legislative bodies tend to get into a little bit of a gray area is when serial meetings occur. And serial meetings are prohibited under the Brown Act. And serial meetings can occur in a variety of contexts. They can occur in what's referred to as a hub and spoke situation, and that is where there's one central member who is going out. That's the hub, and then that hub member will interact with various individual committee members in those kind of a spoke fashion and try to gather a consensus around a particular issue. So that is considered a serial meeting, and that is prohibited under the Brown Act. Another example of a serial meeting is a daisy chain communication, where one member will reach out to committee member B, committee member B will reach out to committee member C, and so on and so forth until a consensus is reached. So a sharing of positions among a majority of a committee or a legislative body is prohibited under the Brown Act. So those are kind of 2 standard examples of how decisions can be made in violation of the Brown Act. We also want to be really careful about reply all. If there is an item under consideration or deliberation, let's say that staff issues an email regarding a particular issue, it's addressed to all of the committee members. If you hit reply all and you express an opinion or a position on that particular issue, arguably you have violated the Brown Act by by kind of creating a consensus. Group texts are also to be avoided. And I'll talk just in a second about social media and chat rooms. But when in doubt, sort of just kind of keep your communications to yourselves unless you're in a public setting or public forum where the public has the opportunity to listen and comment and weigh in on your deliberations. Let me see here. So the California Public Records Act, and this kind of goes to the electronic communication that I just mentioned, or that we just covered in the prior slide. Even your personal email accounts and your personal phone text messages are subject to the Public Records Act. So if there were a Public Records Act request made on a particular issue, which was before the TCC, arguably, that requester would be entitled to your personal email exchange on that particular issue, or would have the ability to access your text communications relative to that particular issue. So it's best to keep everything sort of on your public email, and again, just discuss in these noticed public hearings. Okay. I don't think I'm going to really cover this. I just want to remind everybody that standing board committees and advisory committees, just such as yourselves, are subject to the Brown Act. Move on here. Virtual meetings, and we've kind of entitled this slide "The New Frontier." And again, all of these issues around virtual meetings arose during COVID, when we all had to participate and engage in meetings via Zoom. And thankfully, we all had Teams and Zoom as a way to continue our the conduct of our public business. And the sort of the laws and regulations around virtual meetings have changed post-COVID. CCTA and its committees offer hybrid meetings. Most of our meetings, I think all of our committee meetings and our board meetings, are conducted in person with the ability for the public to call in and provide comment. And so when a committee member is not able to attend a committee meeting in person and has to participate in a meeting, you're doing so under what are called traditional Brown Act teleconferencing requirements. And in order to participate remotely under the traditional Brown Act teleconferencing requirements, you are required to disclose where you are, the location where you are calling in from, so that a member of the public, if they wished to comment on the particular item under discussion, would have the ability to attend your remote location and comment to this body, and to the person calling in remotely would have the ability to do so. And I don't think that this committee in particular, I think that my understanding is that this committee tends to be here in person and rarely relies upon the traditional teleconferencing rules, but sometimes this is an area where people either don't turn on their video, they are calling from a location that they have not identified on the agenda, and these are all technical, but they are violations of the Brown Act. So if in fact people are participating via teleconference, by video conference, we need to have our video monitors on so that members of the public can see that you're actually participating in the meeting. So we can't accept email votes. If you're having technical difficulties, a thumbs up is acceptable. But obviously, to the extent that you can attend these meetings in person, that's advisable. let's see here. I'm going to just very quickly, closed sessions are allowed under the Brown Act, and that's where your legislative body is allowed to meet behind closed doors to discuss certain issues that pertain to the agency, and that primarily involves employment matters, real estate negotiations, public safety, and labor negotiations. And because none of those subject matters or topics are within your subject matter area, in general, it would be my opinion that the TCC is not authorized to convene in closed session. Let's see, meeting notification. So as you are aware, meetings agendas are posted both on our website, and they also have to be physically posted, and we post them on the board and on the screen behind us. In general, agendas have to be posted at least 72 hours in advance of the meeting. There are exceptions to that for special meetings, and they can be posted 24 hours in advance, and those are usually under sort of emergency or special circumstances. Let's see. This board is subject to Robert's Rules of Order, and without belaboring all of the rules that are contained within that document, there are a couple of questions that generally come up, and that is kind of the standard one is on votes on minutes. Even if you were not in attendance at the meeting from which the minutes were drawn or taken, you are still allowed to vote on approval of the minutes, because presumably you've read the minutes. So under Robert's Rules of Order, you may approve minutes for meetings that you were not in attendance at. And then can members vote if they were not in the room or on camera for the motion? And the answer is no, that you do have to be in the room for the presentation and when the motion is made in order to vote on that item. So with that, I would like to just close and see if there are any, I've entitled this slide practice pointers, but I just want to see if this is really, provide opportunity for question and answer. And I know that was quick, but hopefully clear.
Thank you, Ms. Morrison. So
problem.
are there any comments from the committee? Member Weeks.
Thank you. I was hoping maybe you could answer this, and it's probably in the bylaws of each committee, but I've been in situations where, I don't know, call it an act of God or something, the recording doesn't work. You make every attempt to record and to be able to post that recording, and something happens. Mm-hmm. So is there a way to take note of that in the records so that when it's researched and found that it's okay? Or what is the kind of guidance? Is there guidance in the Brown Act for those kinds of situations?
There's not really in the Brown Act, but we have advised staff, and our agendas now reflect the fact that our meetings are hybrid, that members of the public have the opportunity to call in or to view our meetings via YouTube, but that technical difficulties may be encountered. And so our meetings can proceed even in the absence of these, or even in the presence of these technical difficulties. And without getting too much into the weeds, when we were in a fully hybrid situation or a fully remote situation, the inability for members of the public to view and to interact with an agency would have been grounds to suspend the meeting, because obviously the public doesn't have the opportunity to view, listen in, participate, and engage with the legislative body in their deliberative process. So we make it pretty clear now in our agendas that technical difficulties do not necessarily mean that the meeting will be canceled. That's a good question. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Weeks. Any other questions?
Great, you're all trained.
Thank you, Ms. Morrison. Okay, now going to the public comments. If anybody would like to speak from the public, please submit a speaker card or raise your virtual hand, and staff or I will call upon you. Erica, do we have any written, in-person, or remote public comments?
We do not have any public comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Erica. So the next item is an action item and will be presented by Hisham Naomi regarding the recommendations from the 2026 State Transportation Improvement Program Candidate Project Subcommittee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm happy to present this item on behalf of Jay, who did all the work and couldn't be here today for training. We're going to talk about the 2026 STIP, the number of applications we got, the evaluation results, and the recommendation from the STIP subcommittee for your consideration today. Uh-oh, what did I do? It's still up there. Okay, thank you. All right, just a little background about the STIP. It's a 5-year programming document that's adopted by the CTC every 2 years. Normally in April, every couple of years they adopt it. So for the 2026 STIP, it starts in fiscal year 27 through fiscal year 31. Normally, every cycle, they add 2 years to the 5-year cycle. And that's where the extra money gets programmed normally in the last 2 years of the STIP. There are two programs in the STIP, the regional program or the RTIP and the interregional program. Caltrans handles the interregional program. Makes about 25% of the total STIP. What we handle is our portion of the regional program. So we get basically a share every couple of years to program or recommend programming to MTC, and then they forward to CTC. We need to send our recommendation to MTC by October of this year to meet their deadline. The challenge is we're discussing this without really knowing what the final fund estimate will be. We have heard from the CTC on the draft fund estimate, but I know it's going to change. And normally the STIP is really for a capital project, cannot be used for operations or yeah. So we are where the deadline is. We started this process back in March of this year. Came to you asking you your input about the application process, the criteria, and so on. And we took your recommendation and adjusted our process based on that. We issued the call for project, and we received 8 applications. And then the STIP subcommittee met on June 23rd to evaluate those applications. And today we're asking you to approve the STIP subcommittee recommendations. So just a little background about what you recommended we do back in March. You wanted more focus on safety, given where we are now. So you placed more emphasis on safety, increasing its scoring weight. You decoupled the safety from system productivity in the application process. We had suggested that we increase the minimum request to $2 million, but you wanted to keep it at $1 million with some additional notes. And you wanted to give a place for the applicants to add some qualitative information about their project, which we did. And then you wanted the committee, the STIP subcommittee, to have some flexibility on how to adjust the scores, which we did in our scoring tables. And just as a refresher, this is what the table on the left is what we had proposed, and the table on the right is what we changed it to based on the TCC recommendation, and then the board approved it. And this just shows you some of the changes to the application to reflect your comments. I want to thank the STIP subcommittee for spending a whole day with us evaluating the evaluation. Those folks are listed on this slide. Of course, CCTA does not evaluate the application themselves. They rely on the subcommittee to do that work. And we received, in terms of the application, we received 8 applications requesting $88.6 million. In good STIP cycles, we've received probably up to $45 million from the STIP. In poor STIP cycles, we received 0. Or sometimes they even asked us to deprogram funds from the STIP. So STIP hasn't been really a consistent fund source, to say the least. This represents a large number even on a good STIP cycle, which this year is not, this cycle, it's not a good cycle. So you can see we have 2 transit projects submitted out of the 8, and most of the rest of the applications were complete streets type of project, except for the one that was submitted by CCTA for the 684 interchange, which was a freeway improvement project. So we split the committee into 2 groups. They each evaluated all the projects independently, and then we basically sat together and saw if there was any consistencies to reconcile them. In general, the ranking did not really change much from one group to another. And what you see here is what the 2 groups agreed to in terms of the ranking and the scoring of the applications. No surprises, we ranked the top. So don't be worried about that, because we received the fund estimate. We anticipate to have 14.7 million. This is not a lot compared to past cycles, but what we heard like yesterday is Caltrans told us this number will even go further down. So we'll see how far down we will need to go. I expect it might be closer to the 11 million or $12 million share. We'll see how it goes. Despite us being ranked first, because we were successful in getting a grant from the state of $58 million, basically we're putting ourselves third instead of first. So we are recommending that you fully fund project number 2, the one in Lafayette, as well as the one in Walnut Creek, and whatever left will go to 684. So if the fund estimate goes down further, the project that will take the hit is 684. The funding for the 684 is really meant to free up regional Measure 3 money for the next phase of the project. So luckily this time we're able to do this, and we really believe that the 2 projects we're recommending are really good projects. They're safety projects, and they will have a big impact in their communities. So with that, we're asking for your approval of the STIP subcommittee recommendations.
Thank you, Hisham. So are there any comments from the committee? I had one question, but you already answered it. I was wondering why even the other two projects were fully funded and the CCTA project was funded only nominally. So, but I guess you answered that question for me, so.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, we were lucky that we did get the $58 million in SB1 TSIP money. Just after we submitted the application, we learned about that. So we can afford to do this. So.
Got it. Any other comments, questions? No? Okay. Thank you, Sham. So if anyone from the public would like to speak, please submit a public speaker card or raise your virtual hand, and staff or I will call upon you. Erica, do we have any written in-person or remote public comments?
We do not have any public comments at this time.
Thank you, Erica. So do we have a motion?
I'd like to move.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Thank you. I have a first by Member Greenblatt and second by Wertz. Erica, please conduct a roll call.
Member Amijo,
Yes.
Member Conradi,
Yes.
Member Diaz,
Yes.
Member Golier,
Yes.
Member Alt Hernandez,
Yes.
Member Levine,
Yes.
Member Alt McTeevy,
Yes.
Member Ortiz,
Yes.
Member Panganiban,
Yes.
Member Redmond,
Yes.
Member Alt Dixit,
Yes.
Member Stamps,
Yes.
Member Weeks,
Yes.
Member Wertz,
Yes.
Member Alt Valeros,
Yes.
Vice Chair Greenblatt,
Happily, yes.
and Chair Pillay.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously with members Elias, Labau, Nelson, Rahani absent.
Thank you, Hisham. And all right, going to the next item. It's an action item and will be presented by Matt Kelly regarding the draft 2025 congestion management program.
One second, folks.
I can kill some time.
Please do.
Good.
I'd just like
Good
to say,
afternoon.
like, in another life, I worked on the plan for the Lafayette project, and I'm super excited to go from planning to implementation on that.
Awesome.
Sorry about that. Good afternoon, Matt Kelly, Acting Director of Planning for CCTA, here to present the Countywide Transportation Plan, an update on where we're at with the CTP. As most of you know, we completed the development of the blueprint for the 2050 CTP. It was approved by our board in May to kind of form the framework of how we approach the CTP. So that's given us a lot to work with. We took that to our board at a workshop in May that was focused on the CTP. Got a lot of input there. So now we're moving on, using the blueprint as a guide, but we're moving on to the kind of the next phase of the CTP, which involves using the strategies and objectives we developed as part of the blueprint and actually seeing what that looks like on the ground, projects and programs that would be implemented locally. We're referring to what those might look like as transformative visions, and then the actual projects that would result from that would be 5-star projects. Not all there would be lots of smaller projects, but what we're looking to get out of this next phase are what we're calling five-star projects, projects that could be part of a expenditure plan or future sales tax measure. So that's what we're going to talk to you about today, but I'm not going to do the talking. I'm going to let Jordan introduce himself from the consultant team, Fair and Peers. We also have Ash here who's taking notes. Let's see what. Just saddle up next to me, Jordan, and you've got your own mic, and you can advance with the mouse.
All right. Thanks, Matt.
Hold
as
on
mentioned-
one
I'm
second.
sorry, can I
One
ask-
second.
Sorry to
Yes,
interrupt.
Member Stamps?
Madam Chair, did we skip item 4C? Or did we
No.
rearrange the agenda order?
No, we are on track for D. Right now, we are in C, right? Oh, let's see, no, it should be AR.
Sorry, I'm not looking at the agenda right now. Is it supposed to be CMP?
Yes, it's supposed to be
Would-
CMP.
Would you mind if we took them out of order, since I've got the consultant all
I just wanted to-
comfortable up here?
I just wanted to make sure I wasn't losing my mind, because I didn't hear us, so, thank you.
Yeah, I know. Oh, thank you for
Between
bringing it up.
CMP and CTP, I think we're all
Yes.
losing our minds a little, so thank you, Jamar.
Great.
Thank you.
Well, glad to be presenting now. Matt, as Matt mentioned, Jordan Brooks with Fair and Peers, leading the CTP side of our ongoing work from the consultant side. So the objectives of this presentation are first to just provide you all an update on the approach to the CTP project recommendations and prepare our partner agencies for the nominations of five-star projects that Matt mentioned. We'll first go through an overview of the CTP, talk about the project list approach, these transformative visions, and then end with some next steps. So first, looking at the 20-month project schedule, we have we've completed a countywide needs assessment, as well as the 2050 blueprint, which establishes the vision and principles, which was adopted by the board in May. And we're currently developing the draft CTP recommendations, which we'll take again to the board in November. And following that, develop the final report and EIR in 2026. So there are three general processes that are happening right now. So as mentioned, the 2050 blueprint, which establishes principles and strategies. We have the countywide transportation plan, which is focused on identifying projects, programs, and policies that would implement those vision and strategies from the blueprint. And then at the same time, we have a process developing the business plan for CCTA, which is going into more of the nitty-gritty implementation details about how we implement this in a performance-based approach. So the specific components of the CTP that define that implementation of the blueprint, first of all, we're organizing it into what we're calling transformative visions, which take the vision and strategies from the blueprint and start to identify them and specify them in a way that is more tangible. And then coming out of that, identifying the specific projects, programs, and policies that would implement those transformative visions. So, as you may be aware, we have an upcoming transportation expenditure plan, and the interaction between the CTP and the TEP is that the CTP informs the TEP, but it is still a very separate process. So the CTP is focused on principles and strategies that lay the foundation for performance-based planning that will be implemented in the TEP. It establishes a vision. And then on the project side, ultimately the CTP does include all submitted projects because the core sort of technical purpose of the CTP is to, ensure that projects are, define projects to make sure that they're eligible for, state and regional funding opportunities. So related to that, the CTP, it's not fiscally constrained. We're not, removing projects or ranking them or assigning specific priorities for implementation, and it doesn't actually select the projects for the TEP. As part of the TEP, we will be developing a specific project selection framework with stakeholder input later this year. And it will be informed by the process in the CTP, but again, it's a separate process. So the development of the CTP project list, as I said, it establishes eligibility for local, regional, state, and federal funding opportunities. It is based on the Comprehensive Transportation Project List, supplemented with the 2023 call for projects, which together have resulted in over 1,100 submittals from partner agencies. So this list will also be subsequently supplemented with projects identified through the Contra Costa Integrated Transit Plan, as well as new projects that are submitted by CCTA and partner agencies through this 5-star project example process this summer. So the project list, we're organizing the project list by identifying 141 named projects that represent major investments of over $10 million. But again, we are including, all of those 1,100 projects that have been submitted are included in there. So you have smaller projects in that list, as well as programmatic investments like Safe Routes to Schools that have been submitted by agencies. And we'll be categorizing, both the named projects and other investments into project categories to understand, sort of what does this, overall set of investments by the county look like? Where is that going? So moving next to, the transformative visions. So first of all, what the transformative visions are. They show the way that, the CCTA and partners will implement the blueprint in a coordinated and comprehensive manner, bringing that into, more tangible, that it's not just sort of at this vision level. And also just noting that the visions apply across the county, but they are applied, we recognize that there's different transportation and land use context throughout the county. And so what the specifics of how that vision might be implemented would, may look different in different parts of the county. We have taken the transformative visions, the draft transformative visions to the board in a May workshop, and are currently taking them to stakeholder and public engagement throughout the summer. And so we have 5-star project examples. So the purpose of these are to identify, an example project that advances the transformative vision. So it's illustrating the types of projects that CCTA would seek to advance. The examples that are shown today are purely examples, they're preliminary. A preliminary set of projects, and inclusion in the CTP document will require agencies to submit, additional information so that, we can more fully assess their effectiveness and, identify those projects that really advance the visions in the most significant way. So we have 4 transformative visions, providing reliable freeway travel, building a complete reliable transit network, creating safe, comfortable streets, and supporting vibrant, livable communities. Looking at the first, providing reliable freeway travel, this is focusing on, improving reliability by reducing backups and crashes and inefficient use of travel lanes. So each of these transformative visions has 4 to 5 different specific components. On how, what the details of which that I'll go through. So for the reliable freeway travel, we have rapid recovery freeways, which is focused on, rapid incident response and clearance strategies. so that, if there's an incident, it doesn't result in sort of catastrophic delays. Smart lane management, focusing on flexible lane configurations so that, there's a lot of peak direction of travel in Contra Costa, and so, how can we reallocate lanes both between directions and also, with transit to, improve the travel. Build out the network, which focuses on providing a full network of express lanes and other targeted improvements like strategic widenings at bottlenecks to improve throughput and reliability, as well as future-ready corridors, which is focused on providing infrastructure to support connected and automated vehicles. And the benefits that those will provide in the future. So some preliminary 5-star project examples. You'll note that not all of these components have a project example identified, and that may be either because from the limited information that we have currently from the project list, we just weren't able to identify one, or it may be something where it is truly a more programmatic investment in its nature that would advance it. And again, these are purely preliminary, and we'll be looking for partner agencies to provide their nominations. But just what this can look like is on smart lane management. There's the Innovate 680 transit enhancements, building out the network. I-680 SR4 interchange improvements at that major bottleneck, and the SR4 integrated corridor mobility project really supports those connected and automated vehicles. The next transformative vision is building a complete reliable transit network. So this is expanding fast, reliable, seamless transit across the county. So the first component of this is Show Up and Go Transit Network, which is building on the integrated transit plan that's currently under development and focusing on the transit priority corridors, providing high quality BRT or rapid bus style service on those corridors. We have Transit for All Neighborhoods, which is focused on expanding feeder bus and flexible transit options like on-demand service throughout the county. Regional transit connections, so improving regional rail, ferry, and express bus, both to provide transportation options and expanding economic opportunities. Accessible and seamless transit, focusing on a mobility hubs network that ensures that seamless transit between operators and just generally high quality access to transit, both between transit and on the roadways that get you to these major transit stops. And lastly, Contra Costa Takes Flight, focusing on pilot efforts for regional air mobility that position Contra Costa as a leader for that sort of future travel modes. Some example projects include the San Pablo Avenue, McDonald Avenue Transit Corridor, Monument Corridor Transit Surface Improvements, express bus service expansion, the BART station modernization and TOD improvements at mobility hubs, and none specifically for the air mobility. Our third transformative move is creating safe, comfortable streets. So this would redesign streets and corridors to put people first for safer, easier, more comfortable daily travel. The components of this, the first one, Easy Morning Safe Streets. So this would improve streets or redesign streets around schools to focus on active transportation and bus drop-off, and also encouraging school bus programs across the county to provide not only safe and comfortable access for kids going to school, but also providing benefits throughout the county, as that traffic related to schools is a pretty significant contributor. We have safe and smooth traffic flow, which is focusing on using technology to both slow down, provide sort of slower but smoother travel in a way that improves safety while also improving efficiency for people traveling on streets. livable streets for daily life. So this is redesigning streets to align movement and place needs. So that is something that, this is really something where we have a context-sensitive understanding of, like, there are some places where you would want to prioritize different modes. In more core areas, that means more transit and multimodal investments. At the same time, like, there are other areas where have sort of connections between streets and that would warrant a different street design. And lastly, countywide low-stress bikeway network, creating continuous and interconnected all ages and abilities network of low-stress corridors. So some of these projects look like, the 23rd Street multimodal corridor for those livable streets, as well as the Marsh Creek Trail for a countywide low-stress bikeway network. And then the last transformative vision is supporting vibrant, livable communities. So this transformative vision is less directly implementable by CCTA, and so moving forward, a lot of the components of this would require pretty substantial coordination with partner agencies. But it would focus on revitalizing public spaces and community hubs to create, lively, well-connected places that people can live in without using a car. So we have one component, community-centered streets, which is creating neighborhood spaces, car-free neighborhood spaces, both on quiet streets and Main Street, like activities on Main Streets. Revive and Thrive focuses on revitalizing aging retail centers and transforming them into like vibrant mixed-use neighborhoods. Trail-oriented development, supporting compact mixed-use development in urbanized areas along those major trail corridors to really make them destinations, places that people want to be, and also improving access to, the benefits of the trails outside of those urbanized areas, because you have more people who live and work along them in the urbanized areas. And lastly, reimagine the shoreline, transforming the Contra Costa shoreline into, again, a context-sensitive in some places where, it's a place for recreation, and other places supporting where it might be most beneficial for economic development, but really supporting that revitalization there. Preliminary 5-star examples for these, we have, the Iron Horse Trail would be a great focus area for this trail-oriented development, and of course the San Francisco Bay Trail is a key way to reimagine the shoreline. The next steps for all of this, so agencies, we'll be asking agencies to submit project nominations with supporting information by the beginning of September, and we'll be following this meeting with a request for information. We'll use that to develop the draft 5-star project examples, assessing, which of these best advance the transformative visions that we want to highlight in the CTP and develop a draft set of examples, and then take this to the board in November for finalization at the end of this year. So with that, I want to open it up to questions. Some prompts are, if there's any questions about the function and approach to how we're developing the project list, any changes that we could make to better align that approach with the transformative visions, and whether there are any other considerations that we should be factoring into identification of a 5-star project example.
Thank you for that presentation. So are there any comments from the committee? Yeah. Member
Hi.
Dixit, yes.
Yes. One thing I wanted to kind of, I don't know where does this fit in. Maybe it's in that safe streets component of it, is to also include improving of access to transit, like making it safer for ADA improvements. That's the only thing I kind of had.
Thank you. Are there any more comments? Member Woods.
Oh yeah, I just have a few comments. There were a few components of what you presented today that I did want to revisit and maybe, ask some clarifying questions about or comment about. The first is going back to the providing reliable freeway travel transformative vision, where there was some talk of building out the network. And I know that a lot of the emphasis of this seems to be on express lanes in particular. But you did mention widening when you were talking, and you cited this example where we were the I-680S state route for interchange improvements. And I don't know, it just, to me, to call the paradigm that we've been following for decades and decades of prioritizing increased freeway capacity at the expense of other modes, to call that transformative, I don't know, it just doesn't sit right with me. And then the other component that I wanted to touch on is if we go back to complete reliable transit network, specifically the Contra Costa Takes Flight portion, where there's discussion of air mobility and future transit modes. I'm just a little bit wary of predetermining, like referring to air mobility as future transit modes might be just predetermining a little bit what our future looks like. So that's another comment I had. Another one that I had a comment on was the low-stress bikeway network. I like this idea. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more emphasis on it being something that is accessible to all neighborhoods and residents, like a dense network, and not something that is nominally a network, but it's not really accessible to a lot of the folks in the county. And then one clarifying question. I think when you're talking about nomination for 5-star project examples, it sounds like these can be projects that haven't been built yet, too?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, so those were just my initial set of comments on this list. Thank you.
And we are, today, if you want to throw out ideas that, you may have on your local CIP or in your heads that we don't know about, we'd love to hear about them today if you want to tell us, but we will be going through this call for projects over the remainder of the summer to really develop a list and hear if there are projects that we don't know about yet. And also to create projects out of ideas. If there are ideas like, Member Stamps last week has seen this presentation already, and he suggested maybe a programmatic category for construction of Class 1 or Class 4 bikeways. So that's something none of you would be the sponsor for that, but it's something that CCTA could take that information, develop a project or a program around that, and it would be maybe a CCTA sponsored 5-star project.
So is it my understanding all these nominations will be brought back here for discussion?
Yeah, there would be some venue for, vetting that project list, but it would start with staff. And then, yeah, we'll have to figure that out, but yeah.
Thank you. Are there any more comments? Member Armule?
I do have one comment and one question. So I was happy to see the Bay Trail was acknowledged as being a good project for the trail element. I'm also kind of wondering if, projects along the Greenway, which does connect the Bay Trail and the ferry, at least in Richmond, and has a regional significance. If like one project that we would like to see funded and move forward is the Greenway Gap Bridge, which is a major connection piece that's kind of missing right now. So I don't know if that's going to be the kind of project you have in mind, but just kind of curious.
I think by definition that's a 5-star project, just because of it's regional in nature, it's significant, it meets all the criteria. Yeah, that's what we're looking for, projects like that. And you know, that project hasn't really come through CCTA yet. We hear, you know, a lot of talk about it, but we don't have a lot of information on it yet. So that's what we'd be looking for from you.
Yeah, that's part of why we're doing a new request for information, because just looking through the project list that we have, based on, you know, like what we know is out there, it's like there does seem to be some gaps, and so we want to make sure that like all of, you know, the projects that you all are most excited about and think are really have like the biggest benefit, like definitely make sure that we have that in here, and understand, like from your perspective, why it is so great.
It's a very good approach. Any other comments?
Yeah, I have a comment.
Oh, yes. Member Greenblatt?
Yes, thank you. I have a comment that kind of builds off of Committee Member Wirtz's comments, and then I've got a simple question. So, you know, we're talking, I think, in the beginning, like this new paradigm, and I'm reminded of, you know, the new logo and how that's not supposed to be simply a roadway, and it's supposed to represent, you know, other forms of other modes. But, you know, even how this is presented, it's presented as the same old, where we start with our big roadway, highway projects, and then we get down to the local projects. And I think like a possible new paradigm is kind of shifting that, and it might be something, you know, I'm thinking that in, you know, this is building on developing an expenditure plan and going out for another measure, and, you know, what a voter might relate to more readily is something, the potential for funding a project that could be on their street, in their neighborhood, in their city. But when you start out with the freeway projects, and I'm just going to put my West County hat on, I'm like, oh, all those are not near West County. So it kind of sets off a bad tone, I guess you might say. But I think a more inclusive way of thinking about it would be to start with the smaller, more local projects and expand out. And that would be a new way of approaching transportation funding in the county, and it would be a new paradigm. And we could really then kind of make it seem like this is talking about bikeways and sidewalks and such. So that was my comment. And then my question, which I think is relatively easy, is will these requests for projects, communications or information, will that be going to RTPC staff as well?
We can copy RTPC staff. We would be sending it out to the single point of contacts at each jurisdiction.
I'd like it to go to the RTPC staff, because I could see the RTPC level having discussions about, you know, kind of formulating multi-jurisdictional projects or, you know, cross-jurisdictional projects, and I think that would be the appropriate forum to do that.
Yeah, and I did want to go back to your previous comment about, you know, the bottoms up, top down approach. You know, I think for the CTP, because it is unconstrained, you know, I'll have to think about that for a while. I think for the TEP, that might, when we're actually developing the TEP project list, I think we're going to have to pay a lot more attention to those neighborhood projects that are going to attract the voter. You know, the CTP isn't quite going for that.
Right, but, you know, we can dip our toe in the water and start making those changes and thinking about how that happens, so you don't do it at the last minute with the TEP. It's like been going on all along.
And when, yeah, I guess just a clarifying question. When you say the more local projects, you know, there's a freeway project is extremely expensive, and compared to a freeway project, you know, $10 million, class 4 corridor is a small local project. Or when you say local project, are you thinking of like still significant investment, but smaller than that? Or are you really focusing on truly a like neighborhood street level?
Well, I think like when you presented it, you had those rectangles and the 4 different sections. I'd go right to left instead of left to right.
I see where you're coming from. I mean, we started with freeways, I think I see where you're coming from. No, I agree. We could approach it from the more community side, the livable streets, the slide we're looking at now, I think that's probably a good place to start. Yeah, we can reorient, for sure.
Something to add to that is if we requesting agencies for projects, they're most likely going to come in that level, on a regional, on their level of projects than on a regional level. So something to think about.
Yeah, we are developing some kind of minimum qualifications for these projects, a minimum dollar amount, and other considerations for you to keep in mind when proposing these projects, and the relationship to the regional efforts and things like that. So yeah, we think it's going to be a very interesting process to go through, and we're excited about it. We have to have something we do an EIR on the CTP. We're unique in that we actually examine the impacts of our CTP, and so having these five-star projects is really important. Otherwise, you don't get an impact if it's just a lot of small projects. So we really want to be able to test out what is possible and what the impacts, and learn what the impacts will be.
Yes, Member Ortiz?
Yeah, I just wanted to build off of what Finn and Leah said about, the paradigm shift. I think maybe even if you start with like the active modes, like the whole low stress bikeway, because that feels more, like there's a change. And then I had a question, and I don't completely follow how the difference between the 5-star project examples and the project list. Are you just going to be looking to nominate one example per category? And so you're just looking for an example? I just couldn't understand that versus the full project list. So if you could just clarify that.
Yeah, so the project list, it contains all projects that have been submitted, essentially because it's performing the technical role of maintaining eligibility. And then the 5-star project examples, I think we haven't decided, there will be exactly one project for each component or something like that, or maybe there would be, multiple that are highlighted, but it is intended to be a very small subset of the overall, 1,100 projects that were submitted, a small subset of like large, high-impact projects that really show not only serve to identify that particular project as something where like, hey, this is what we want to do, like this is a good project, but also it's like, for the next set of projects that people are developing, like look at this project, make projects like this project, because this is, the end state that we want for Contra Costa.
And does being selected as an example project, like basically like prioritize you for funding, or what does that mean? I mean, yeah, you're probably the best of the best, so you're likely compete well for various sources of funding. But yeah, if you could just explain that, if there are any other consequences to being selected as an example other than just like, this is a great project.
Yeah, so it does not have a like specific tie like that. I think what it does is it essentially like establishes for the TEP, like which will have that is something that is like selecting projects is like, okay, like this project is likely to be successful. And so that can be helpful both for, you know, almost like getting the word out that like, hey, this is a great project, but then also, you know, provides agencies the opportunity to, you know, going through this process of like, oh, you know, the projects that we like, we're having a hard time fitting that into, you know, this transformative vision framework. And, you know, well, in 6 months, you know, we're going to be asked for like the real deal, you know, getting into the TEP evaluation. So like, what should we be brainstorming to come up with projects that will be performing well against, you know, these principles and strategies?
Yeah, and Member Ortiz, the CTP isn't a programming document, so it being named in the CTP is not going to advance it in terms of funding or prioritize it necessarily. But you know, to Jordan's point, when we get to the point where we are putting together a TEP, that will be a performance-driven, you know, data-driven selection process that will prioritize projects within the TEP. So by looking to these examples, you are looking at projects that will presumably score very well in that process. But for the CTP, no.
Member Greenblatt?
That was very interesting. It makes me wonder more about that subset about flying projects or something like that. I'm not that familiar with that subject area, but I'm wondering if we're starting to identify projects that compete well for funding. Like, should we, and can you go back to what that definition is for those flight projects? Like, should we be approaching our local airport to see if they have projects that, I mean, it seems like we're kind of entering into a new mode.
Without a doubt, and we actually are talking to the county. The county has started some sort of study looking at because they have 2 airports, and looking at it, and the kind of the most common, I think, nomenclature for the technology is eVTOL, electric vertical takeoff and landing, large drones.
But if we're starting, sorry, but I guess there's that part of flying,
yeah.
And then there's more traditional flying. So if we're entering into flying, adding in that mode, should we be saying that this is only the vertical takeoff one, or should we be opening it up so it's all types of flight modes?
Jordan, you can comment, but urban air mobility, I think, is what we're going for here, which is different than flying from, you know, going to an airport and getting on a plane.
But I guess I don't know why that and not the other or something else. Because we do, you point out, we have 2 airports.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think the focus of the CTP is about travel within the like really the county, but then also like how the county travels or throughout the region as well. And so like access to an airport that would take you to the other side of the country, if I'm understanding what your question is, like, that's not really what the focus of a CTP is.
I mean, I don't know if we've had a discussion about, oh, we're gonna add a new mode. I mean,
Well, and you know, what we're trying to do is pilot this and look for opportunities, because ultimately it is a kind of a first and last mile solution, though maybe not just 1 mile, probably farther than 1 mile, but ultimately that's what it is. And just like ATN and microtransit and things like that, we think there's potentially opportunities in different parts of the county. You know, it could also be for goods movement. It could also, you know,
but I think you need to look at like who could be served by that mode, because, a vehicle is a lot more accessible to, if we're talking about automated, whatever, cars, doing your last mile versus, some kind of helicopter thing that goes vertical and flies and then across the county and lands. Like, that seems like it serves a very limited population.
I think that's what we need to figure out as part of
So,
this.
Given that, I mean, I'm speculating that it serves a limited population, but that's what I'm guessing. But then should those funds be competing for the limited pot of money that we do have available? Because, should this be a project that competes well for money, which is what these 5-star projects are supposed to be doing?
So, like I said, we're not assigning funding, programming funding as part of the CTP effort. We do want to look into new technologies. We want to support what the county's doing in terms of their looking at this technology. We don't know if it's appropriate. We don't know how appropriate it is for Contra Costa and where it may work. We do see opportunities potentially passing the county by, and that there is kind of a Bay Area plan for this, and they've got landing sites in Alameda County and Napa County, and they're flying over Contra Costa, but not landing here yet. So it's kind of one of those things like, do we want to let a potential opportunity pass us by?
And I think I would also just note that, like, these are the draft transformative visions. Like, part of the feedback that we're receiving from you is like, what is the interest for this in Contra Costa, both like among stakeholders, the agencies, like do jurisdictions, are they interested in moving forward with this? How well does this resonate with the public? And if it doesn't, if it's not really a priority, then these are draft, and it would be updated in the final.
We still need to come up with a project. So
well, that's what I'm concerned about, is that we've kind of picked this one subset of a mode and that's brand new, and we haven't gone through a process to figure out if that's the right subset of a mode that we should be pursuing. Yet the outcome of this is to identify a project that would compete well for funding, but we haven't had that process yet.
yeah, I think that's something we can take up at the CTP team level.
Member Woods?
Hi, yes, just to piggyback really quickly off of what Member Greenblatt was just saying, I would like to, because y'all mentioned that there is a Bay Area plan for this, if that's something that you could send to us, just so that we have that added context, that as far as I know, I mean, I don't want to speak for the rest of the committee, but that's not really something that's on my radar, so that I think that would be really helpful. Also, just something I don't think I mentioned before, framing this as transit, I mean, basically, you mentioned that this could be just for goods, in which case I don't think it makes sense at all to frame it as transit, or maybe, as Member Greenblatt was raised the possibility of, maybe this is just for a very limited subset of people, frankly, the extremely wealthy, in which case it also, yeah, I would echo Member Greenblatt's concern that this might not be the best use of funds, the most efficient use of funds. I mean, I understand that maybe there's some speculative technology here, but just to lump that in with transit, it really doesn't make sense to me. That's not really, as far as like I'm aware, what people are talking about when they're talking about transit. So, I mean, if you want to have a speculative technology section, maybe, but it just doesn't seem like transit to me.
We can definitely share the article.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Member Weeks?
I thank you. Forgive me for having bridges on my mind, but we're opening the Iron Horse Trail Bridge this weekend, so I'm going to use that analogy a little bit in what I'm saying here. Thank you for pulling this together. It's really interesting. Like, the more I read the the providing reliable freeway travel and then read the blurb underneath, the more I kind of understand what you're trying to do there. That's, you know, I see that there's this kind of focus on looking at the inefficiency on highways and looking to make them more efficient. So I see kind of code in there to looking at maybe higher density vehicles moving through there, like a bus or something like that, higher occupancy vehicles. So I see what you're getting at there. But I was struggling with how to say this, that freeways themselves function as a major barrier in communities throughout the Bay Area. And we've struggled with this in the Bay Area since I've been involved in planning. And a few places we've actually moved freeways to recombine neighborhoods. So, you know, if we're looking for like a vision, I keep thinking bridges, because I got bridges in my brain, but, you know, making the freeway corridors more permeable so that they no longer separate neighborhoods and communities. And, you know, maybe there's some idea there, a language there where we could, you know, yes, there's going to be freeway level travel for everyone, no matter what your mode is. So you can go quickly between towns because you don't run into a freeway in the middle on your bike, or when you're trying to, if you want to go on a mega hike and you want to walk 3 towns over, you can still do that along the shoreline or something like that. So maybe there's some kind of connectivity message we could focus on rather than having it feel like, and I agree with everybody here, that in the sense that starting with freeways doesn't sound transformative. And right out of the gate, you're kind of like, is that really transformative? So yeah, I agree with all that, but maybe there's you know, if there's a way to look at that creates corridors. And I mean, this is a little bit unrelated, but there's, you know, a lot of work been done in creating wildlife corridors over highways, for example. So you have cyclists wanting to get across, you have pedestrians wanting to get across, and you have wildlife wanting to get across. So there's so many use groups that want to get across the highway that I think that this kind of reconnecting through the freeway infrastructure, maybe there's a way of messaging that piece. And also, the other thing I kept thinking is there is definitely vibrant, livable communities talked about here, but I keep thinking, where are the trees? Where is nature? Is that part of this? Is air quality a discussion as part of this? I didn't necessarily see that. Maybe I just didn't read it well enough. But if you're walking around in the street, you definitely don't want to be right up against a concrete wall that is the outside of the freeway with no plants and garbage blowing around. So that's what I kept thinking when we were looking at this. So I was in that nightmare. So bridges or tunneling or connecting, I think could be a nice vision for this. And if there's a way to do that, you know, talk about freeways and how to liberate us from their effects in some way, might be useful. So sorry, that was a long way of arriving at that, but I was trying to pare it down, but I just couldn't do it. So sorry about that.
And, yeah, I think some sort of category that's framed around, you know, removing the freeway barriers from,
yeah, because you could do that for all kinds of other users who, when you aren't in your car, you're a pedestrian or you're doing something else, and in your neighborhood, it's you know, sometimes it can be pretty miserable next to a freeway. So there's very little talk about like noise, for example. You know, like I just saw one of the realtor companies has an app where you can actually look in the neighborhood and see how much freeway noise is before you buy in the neighborhood before you buy a house. So this kind of whole quality of life impact of highways could be folded into this. So I know that there's been experiments done at different kinds of paving and things like that to make freeways quieter and mitigate the impacts of freeways on the surrounding community. So maybe kind of turning it inside out and saying, hey, we're going to make freeways better, and we're going to make them quieter, and we're going to make them easier to move through as a member of the surrounding community. So, sorry, I talked too much.
And I just want to go back to, you know, we do have this category, providing reliable freeway travel. You know, I think your example belongs in a different category. We did carve out this category because we heard from our board that this was important, especially certain members. You know, that being said, it doesn't have to be front and center, but in order to have support at the board level, we have to be thinking about freeways, at least keeping them moving, you know. So I think anything you can do around that to add value and make the freeways less of a barrier and you know, something we don't have to think about when we leave the house if it is going to be a barrier, I think that will, just add, much more value to the plan. But, we do have to keep in mind that there are folks in the county that rely on the freeways, not only, to get to school, to work, for economic development, things like that. So we have jurisdictions that are very concerned about
And your
the
first point
road,
of, like you noticing that a lot of these are focused, or it's mostly focused on the efficiency, and like is right on, right? Like, a lot of the, desire for, freeway widening, or, things that, are not really aligned with where we want to go, are a response to, hey, it's just like, it's super congested. And so I need more road, right? And so we're trying to come up with, trying to implement things that can reduce that congestion without the, all of the negative impacts that come from providing more roads. So it's like, hey, this crashes, like, is there a way that we can make it, strategies to immediately respond to that so it doesn't create a cascading delay, using our lanes better, like, right, if you go in East County, like, it's crazy in one direction. It's totally gridlocked for miles and miles and miles, and the other ways is totally free flow. And if we can allocate those lanes differently, it's like you can alleviate some of those concerns without, providing more roads, things like that. Or, with the, like, transit lanes, it's like, okay, you can actually increase throughput, and encourage people to move onto transit, again, without expanding the road.
And as our public outreach continues, we're developing little videos and vignettes kind of showing how space could be reallocated, both on roadways, freeways, public spaces. So I think, as we move along, I think you'll see some cool examples of what could be done.
I have just one thing. I promise it'll be my last question, comment. Can programs be nominated?
Yeah, definitely. I think a future, sales tax measure is going to be programs heavy. For the plan, I think we're looking for, like I said, these 5-star projects, and in some cases those are going to be individual, capital projects, and in some cases it's going to be a program of smaller projects. So I think it's coming up with those programs, not necessarily identifying every single project that could go under it, but identifying kind of the umbrellas that would really make an impact.
More comments? Member Levine?
I think I'm trying to make sure this is on topic. A while ago, CCTA hosted a symposium for all the local agencies to talk kind of about the future and expand into the next iteration of the sales tax, and taking feedback from local agencies kind of on what was a priority at the local agency. It seems that the CTP kind of folds nicely into that, and I'm not saying to spend more time hearing feedback, but knowing that there's going to be some review of the projects, either at staff level or somehow integrated to TCC. It also seems like this could be another avenue of kind of going back to the local agencies on hey, like, here's the future look. How it ties into the CTP would be helpful as well. Just a thought to brainstorm on.
Any other comments? So if I may understand it correctly, all these categories have already been decided ahead of time, right? In terms of these 5-star projects that you're determining, we are not requesting any changes to any of these categories at this moment.
I mean, there's certainly tweaks we could make. The kind of overall framework has been decided, but and we, kind of created these transformative visions to fit within that framework. But certainly there can.
Yeah. So these, there's 17 components that you see up there, like those, they're draft, right? So we're taking it to the public, and so, and have already taken them to the board and like, got their input on what they see as higher priority and lower priority. And so at the end of that outreach process, we'll be updating these. So there may be some that drop out that really don't have support. And also, modifications to some to, focus on, like their barriers is a really big issue that keeps getting brought up, and so incorporate that, or, changes like that. But the overall framework for, we want to identify these transformative visions and identify 5-star project examples that best exemplify how we would want to, like what it would look like in practice to implement those. That framework has been set, or like that's what we're moving forward with.
All right. Thank you. Any other questions? One more?
Just a clarification about the kind of projects that we can submit. There's talks about providing bus service, like improving bus service on freeways, or providing all-day frequency for on all transit networks. So, is the project a lot of these require operation dollars, even for like I-680. So, can those projects be part of it, or is it mostly looking for like capital projects?
Yeah, we were projects that are primarily operational are welcome. Like we're looking for the major investments, however those are determined. I think in large part, the type of projects that are here are capital projects. But if it's we want to do a major improvement to express bus service, or things like that, like those are welcome.
Thank you, Member Dixit. Any other questions, comments? Hearing none. So if anyone from the public would like to speak, please submit a public speaker card or raise your virtual hand, and staff or I will call upon you. Erica, do we have any written, in-person, or remote public comments?
We do not have any public comments at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Erica. This was an informational item, so there is no roll call for this. But going back to the previous item, which is, hold on. Which is going back to the draft 2025 congestion management program. I'll hand it over to Matt again.
Thank you, Chair. I don't have a presentation on this item. This is approval to release the 2025 Congestion Management Program for Contra Costa County. Just a little background on the CMP, and I always issue an apology ahead of this to those who have heard me do this. This is our 17th update of the CMP. The CMP was originally part of legislation adopted by the state of California in 1991. That legislation was based on the Measure C growth management program at the time. It was, basically the state was looking for a way to link transportation and land use decisions. That is essentially what the growth management program as designed, or was designed to do, and it was really, it was really innovative at the time. There wasn't anything else like it in the state. So when the state decided to get into the, the land use and transportation business, they, or at least wanted the urban counties to get involved in the land use and transportation business, they used the growth management program as the template for that. That being said, when we are, as the CMA, Congestion Management Agency for Contra Costa County, we are required to update our CMP on a biannual basis. every 2 years. So when we do that, we generally defer to our growth management program because it does, with the work we're doing under there, under the GMP, basically satisfies the requirements of the CMP. It's kind of a long, winding road of history, but just wanted to give you some background and it is why we treat the update of the CMP as more of a technical exercise and defer to the growth management program. However, I'll just run through the requirements real quick so you can understand what's in here, except I lost my page here. So anyways, the main requirements of the CMP are, one, to monitor the status of the level of service standards. Yes, I said level of service standards of our CMP network. Our CMP network was adopted back in 1991 and consists of all of our freeways and arterials that are a subset of the routes of regional significance from our action plans under the GMP. We monitor the freeways for their segment level of service, and we monitor 65 intersections on the CMP network around the county. And yes, CMP still requires us to collect level of service data, which, we actually look at as, as potentially a benefit because we are able to track level of service over time, which is useful information, especially to our cities, those who are planning around those intersections. And at the same time, we're collecting bike and pedestrian approach volumes in addition to the vehicle volumes. So we're trying to get a little added benefit out of the required monitoring exercise. But we did that level of service monitoring at those 65 locations around the county. We did that this spring, and we will be bringing those results to you in the fall, probably October. And we also make all of that data available to you, the count sheets, the synchro sheets. So if you need that information for a project, it's yours. So all that will be available later this year. Another major element of the CMP is the capital improvement program. We're required to have a 7-year CIP. As was mentioned in the previous item, we base our 7-year CIP on our CTPL, our Comprehensive Transportation Project Listing, which is those 1,100 projects that Jordan mentioned. And our last full call for projects for that list was in 2023. We went through this body here to do a coordinated call for projects for the CTP, the CMP, and the STIP at the time. So, we did receive, we did update the database at that time with new projects and updates to existing projects. What we're proposing to do is to use that same list for the 2025 CIP. However, we will be incorporating any new projects we receive as part of the CTP 5-star projects call. Those are presumably new projects that aren't in the CTPL today and would not show up in the CIP. We're also requesting that you look at the CIP listing that's in the appendix that was included in your packet, or a link from your packet, and look at those projects. If your project is in the CIP, then for all intents and purposes, it's good. That there are some funding programs that require you to be in the CMP CIP. as long as you're in there and the project description is accurate, then you're good. You don't need to be updating every single, component of the project. However, if you look through and see there are projects, one, if they're missing, we want to know about it, especially if they're potentially a 5-star project. And two, if there is, if there's a project description that is just out of date, doesn't meet the current extent of the project, that's important for updating. Otherwise, if your project is in there, it is considered, it will qualify for funding, just being mentioned in the CIP. So those are our main efforts as part of this technical update, is that LOS monitoring and the CIP. Another item I would ask, especially the transit agencies, to look at is we do document all the performance measures used around the county, and most of them are from our action plans, ITP, things like that. But the transit agencies or transit providers do have their own performance metrics, and we've attempted to keep that section updated with your latest performance metrics. But if you wouldn't mind taking a cursory look at the performance element chapter in the draft CMP and let us know if we're missing anything. The other main requirement is making sure the program is consistent with the current regional transportation plan. In 2023, we updated it to be consistent with the current RTP, which is Plan Bay Area 2050. So we didn't need to make any updates there. We made updates saying we will be incorporating the Plan Bay Area 2050 plus when that's available, but that will be in the 2027 update. Also, we've documented our model update, which you may know we're just wrapping up our travel demand forecasting model update, which is another requirement of the CMP, that we have a travel demand forecasting model that is consistent with MTC's model. And since we built on top of MTC's forecasting model, that was one of the reasons we adopted the MTC model as our modeling platform, is in order to stay consistent with the MTC model and the CMP requirement. So that is my presentation today. We'd like to release the draft out to you all so you can review it and provide any comments on the sections I mentioned. And we will be, we generally take it to the RTPCs. It doesn't generally get a lot of attention, it's not a lot of interest, but we're certainly willing to take it out again in the fall once the board officially releases it in September based on your recommendation today. So I can take any questions.
Thank you, Matt. Are there any comments from the committee? Member Stearns.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick question on the schedule. I see you have the draft CMP document being released in September and the LOS monitoring results being released the following month. Is there a reason for staggering it?
Yeah, the monitoring is kind of on a separate track because the consultants are going through all the synchro analysis right now, and it is an actual separate document from the CMP. So if I can get it done by September, and we generally don't take it to the board, we usually just take it to this committee. It's a little technical for the board. If I have it ready for September, I could do it all under one cover, but generally we kind of treat one like a technical document, the monitoring report, and let the board weigh in on the CMP itself, because the board actually has to adopt the CMP under public hearing in December.
Thank you. Any other comments? I just have one comment, Ahmad. When you mentioned we can comment on the CMP, we can make updates to the CIP list in the CMP, correct? And you did mention that the five-star projects in the future will be added to this, right? But wouldn't that have to match the network?
No, there's no real tie between the CMP network and the CIP in general. It's kind of it's an unconstrained project list. The intent of the project list is to benefit the CMP system, but in general, most projects, even when we run a filter with all the criteria, that most projects make it through that sieve.
Got it, thank you.
We do have a filter, technically, that tries to find all the projects that meet CMP criteria, but we will attempt, we will run all of the five-star projects through that filter.
Got it. Member Weeks.
Just a quick question on the TSM in here. I know no one calls it TSM anymore. We had our own, we changed it to TDM quite a few years ago, but it seems like now there's also, Vision Zero moving forward and some ideas like that. So in the future, do you guys foresee, cities having like a Vision Zero initiative being able, that included TDM, TSM stuff, be an equivalent of the old TSM, and moving away from it being like a TDM focused thing, or is TDM staying as that acronym that we're going to be using moving forward, or is it moving into the Vision Zero era? I guess is my question.
Unfortunately, when all this stuff was memorialized, TSM was the nomenclature at the time. We now refer to TSM as TDM internally, even though it is in the growth management program. We are right now, as part of the CTP update, looking at potential changes to the growth management program, and all of what you said is part of that conversation. So, as part of the CTP update, and then leading into a TEP conversation, we will definitely be broaching making substantive changes to the growth management program.
And the reason I'm asking is because there's just lots of changes within our city where we're looking at our committees, trying to figure out what committees do what, and want to make sure that we have the right committees to do the right review. And, can all this be done by TAC, or does it need to be a TDM advisory, or does it need to be a more environmental focused Vision Zero group? We don't know the answer, and you guys probably don't either, because it's a moving target. But I just want to mention it, and I kind of like the TSM from the old days. Whenever I see it, it makes me laugh and feel old. So I'm fine with it there. You don't have to struggle to remove it on my account for sure. But it'd be interesting to see where this goes. So thanks for taking the comment.
Just like LOS, it's a struggle,
All right, so going into the public comments, if anyone from the public would like to speak, please submit a public speaker card or raise your virtual hand, and staff or I will call upon you. Erica, do we have any written, in-person, or remote public comments?
We do not have any public comments at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Erica. So do I have a motion?
A motion to adjourn? Excuse me.
No, motion for this
this
approving the draft 2025
Yes,
edition.
the motion to adopt.
Approved.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Second. Thank you. I have a first by Member Armijo, second by Member Scamps. Thank you. That concludes our meet. Okay, we need
do
a roll call. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Member Armiel,
Yes.
Member Conrad, Member Diaz,
Yes.
Member Golier,
Yes.
Member Ortiz,
Yes.
Member Panganiban,
Yes.
Member Redmond,
Yes.
Member Rahani, he's absent. Member Dixon, Alt Dixon,
Yes.
Member Stamps?
Yes.
Member Weeks?
Yes.
Member Wertz?
Yes.
Member Alt Valeros?
Yes.
Vice Chair Greenblatt?
Yes.
Chair Pillai?
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously with members Conradi, Elias, Alt Hernandez, Levine, Alt McTuvey, Nelson, Rahani, absent.
Hernandez is present.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Member Hernandez, how do you vote?
Yes.
Sorry about that.
Oh, no worries.
All right, that concludes our meeting. This meeting is adjourned at 4:27 PM.
Yes, I saw folks there, yeah. Right, right, yeah, well, yeah, you missed all the, we're doing in Richmond. Maybe next time. Yeah. Or you like to think it's Red Letter Day? Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't get you coming back. I noticed that I have to know that you left, but, oh, no, I'm glad I asked. Have a good time.
Again. Oh, really? Okay. So they're not getting any easy right now.
Frozen like ours?
How to deal with that.
Yeah, this project, this funding, that's going to allow us to build from where it ends today.
Yeah, are you involved at all with the whole
Discussions
and numbers involved?
And a bridge over Happy Valley.
Centralized transit and
Yeah.
That is so exciting.
State Center.
My son's in high school.
Yeah, so she actually, I know, because they,
Yeah.
to New York.
Right, right. Yeah.
Better part of $1 audit of the 6 East Bay bus operators.
Wow.
She had initially had a virus.
I know, right?
East Bay bus operators. I mean, we think it's right now, we're going to turn travel as well as waste money because it's pretty much all anyway.
Which school?
Or stuff that's studied